All right, John, jump in here because this is the tricky part, I think. Yeah, $1 billion is a lot of money, and I think Daniel had a good point there. On the other hand, there are all sorts of businesses, all sorts of families, all sorts of states that have had to suck up bigger cuts than this, and they haven't screamed that everything's falling apart at the edges. Is this just political opportunism here? What do you think?
Look, there's definitely some political theater. That said, this whole plan was supposed to be so stupid, so brutal, so blunt, that it would compel the two parties to come together. There is an alternative. It's called a grand bargain, but the parties can't seem to reason together. But what you're hearing from a lot of folks, especially on the Democratic side of the aisle, is what's known in Washington as the Washington Monument Gambit. They highlight the most painful things that could possibly be cut, saying we're going to shut the Washington Monument. And that freaks people out, and it makes the impact seem exaggerated to folks at home. So there is some theater to this. There's a lot of fear-mongering in Washington. Don't want to shock anyone at home. But the fact that we're here and we're trying to get their attention so they come back from vacation and start doing something is itself pathetic and outrageous.
Raihan, let me have you jump in here because there is a political side to this. No matter what either party says, they are playing a lot of politics on this because they see an advantage here. And the Republicans look like they're very much on the losing side of that equation right now. Look at this poll from Pew Research Center USA Today. Who would you blame if forced spending cuts take effect? President Obama, 31%. The GOP in Congress, 49%. Tell me about that, Raihan. How much do you think the GOP will pay the price on that? Or is it a temporary price they'll pay?
Well, the issue is, in politics, what's really relevant is what happens come 2014. And between now and then, there are a lot of things happening. In fact, at the end of March, we also have the debate over the continuing resolution. And what I think is happening right now is that a lot of Republicans are saying, look, you're right, these cuts are distributed in a way that's very problematic, and perhaps the president should have more authority over how those cuts are distributed. So, for example, if a cut has to happen at the level of a tiny project or program or activity, then it's a lot harder to make cuts that are coherent than if they happen at the level of, say, the entire Pentagon. So the more discretion you give the White House, then the easier these cuts might go. And so Senate Republicans have said, we're willing to give you that discretion. And in fact, House Republicans next week are gearing up to pass legislation along those lines as well. The thing is that Senate Democrats are not going to go along with it. And the president doesn't want to go along with it. Why? Because if the president has that discretion to see to it that those cuts don't have such disastrous effects, then the president actually owns the cuts that he actually has to make. So partly there's a pass the buck dynamic going on here as well.